They searched his name, they searched his parents' name, and they couldn't find any record of him in New York or New Jersey. And if he was from New Jersey, he would have had to have had something, a driver's license, anything. And he didn't exist.
Welcome back to Other People's Lives. I'm Joe Santagato.
I'm Greg Dybec.
For anyone out there that wants to be a guest on our show, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can reach us at our website, oplshow.com, or just send us an email directly at oplpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, and if you want to get bonus episodes while supporting the show, you can head over to patreon.com/OPL show. And today we're going to be speaking to a woman whose real-life boyfriend of 2 years completely lied about his identity and his life. And it's wild to think that you can be with someone for that long, to share countless intimate, vulnerable moments, just to find out that you literally know nothing about them, not even their real name. So it's a crazy story. It's an important one. And we've got our guest on the line right now. So thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Greg. Yeah, it's good to be here. My name is Catherine, and I'm excited to share my story.
Yeah, no, we're excited to dive into it and just to learn about this experience, and then of course, talk about potential red flags, ways for other women to hopefully avoid or, at least become aware of a situation similar to yours if they find themselves in it. But to start, can you just tell us about how your relationship with this man originally formed and what he was like? And, was there anything alarming or strange in the beginning?
Yeah, absolutely. So I met who I know to be as Will in June of 2018. We actually met on a sugar daddy website, and so I had no plans of falling in love with anyone at this time. I was in a space of my life where I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship, and I was just kind of looking to have some fun and not really take anything too seriously. And I met Will, and we had a couple text conversations back and forth here and there, decided to met up in person a few weeks later. And it was, I think, what you would consider a very cliche love at first sight on my end. I was incredibly attracted to him. He was so charming and just very charismatic. And I just fell head over heels pretty much in that moment. I just thought, wow, he's checking off all these boxes for me. I didn't even think I was looking for this at the time, but like maybe this could be something real. And we agreed to meet up and continue having an arrangement, as it's called in this world. And we did that for a little while. We actually met up the very next day, and I felt such an intense connection with him right off the bat. So even in dating, let alone in this world of the sugar daddy, it can be hard to find someone you really connect with. And so when I felt that immediately from him, I just thought, wow, this is so great. I'm so excited for this. And we continued along that relationship, that arrangement, for a few months until I was starting to realize, like, you know what, I'm really starting to develop feelings for this man. He's very sweet with me. I feel like I can do anything with him, and he's not going to judge me for it. I can be my full self, and he'll just accept me as I am. Now, the problem was, he right off the bat when we first met was saying, I'm very busy. I work for myself. I have my own company. So I don't have a lot of time to date. And that's why I'm doing the sugar daddy stuff, because it's just convenient for me. And I thought, well, that makes total sense. Mm-hmm. I'm not really in a space for a serious relationship either. So for me, it's also convenient. However,
I was going to ask if that was that like looking back the original sort of red flag where you were like, okay, maybe a little strange, but in the moment you were kind of just thought it was pretty normal?
Yeah. I mean, I think because I wasn't looking for anything serious, it was so easy for me to say, okay, he's busy, whatever, no big deal. I'm busy too. I'm not looking for someone to take up my total time. Like, fine, no big deal.
And is it busy in like vague terms too? Like I have a company, but you never necessarily see like the work that he's doing?
Correct. Yeah, it was always just like, I have these meetings, I have client meetings. That was constant. So he's like, we can meet up once a week. And I thought, great, because again, I was in the same boat. So I thought, okay, cool, once a week we can meet up. The problem was, I lived with roommates. This was in Hawaii, by the way. I lived with roommates, and kind of similar to New York where I am now, everyone's on top of each other. There's not a lot of like quiet space. So I didn't feel comfortable him coming to my home. And he said that he lived with a roommate and the roommate had a child. So I didn't want to be mixed up with that. So we always got hotel rooms,
Oh.
which again, at the time, it worked for me. It worked for him. I didn't think anything of it. However, as we started to continue our relationship, and I started to disclose, like, you know what, I think I have real feelings for you, and he reciprocated that. I was like, I don't feel comfortable continuing an arrangement with you. I remember texting him one day, like, I can't accept money from you at this point. Like, I don't want anything from you other than to move forward with the relationship. And he reciprocated that and said, yeah, same here. So we started dating at that point. However, nothing changed in regard to, we still met up in hotel rooms. We still only met up once a week. He was still very busy, and it just went on from there until I think the real turning point was, it was the end of September. So we'd been seeing each other for about 4 months. And he, as we're meeting up, and he tells me, he's like, you know what, I just found out my mom has cancer. And I have to go back to New Jersey to go take care of her. And I was devastated. I felt like, here's someone I thought I really cared about. We had just shared I love yous with each other like the week prior. And I just thought, oh my God, like, I haven't felt this way about someone ever. And I haven't shared I love you with someone in a very long time. And all of a sudden he's leaving. Like, I just felt like my whole world was being pulled out from under me. And it was so devastating. And he was like, at the same time though, I felt very honored, not honored, but I just felt good about that, knowing that, you know, here's such a selfless man. Like, he cares so much about his family that he's willing to uproot his life and go take care of his mom. I was like, that's a partner that I would want for my family too. Like, I want someone who is that caring and dedicated to his
Right.
family.
Yeah.
Did he say how long he was going to be gone?
No, he said he was just going to go take care of her, and it was unknown. I had no idea if he was even going to come back to Hawaii. No clue. It was just totally left up in the air.
Okay. So, and that's 4 months into the relationship. So he ends up leaving. I guess you're not seeing him any longer. Are you keeping the relationship going, or how long is he actually absent?
At the time, I was doing professional cuddling, and so a lot of my clientele.
Okay, first of all, you have an extremely interesting life outside of all of this, but
Yeah.
go on.
Yeah, so I'd already been doing professional cuddling for a while, and I went to New York for work often because that was, I mean, there's so many more
It's
people.
the cuddle capital of the world.
It's the cuddle capital of the world, correct. So I was already traveling there. And so when he said he was going to New Jersey, I thought, well, you know, maybe I can just come work there more often. And that's what I did for a long time. I started coming out here, so I'm in New York now. I started coming out here about once every other month, once a month. At first it was like a week at a time, but that's a long flight from Hawaii to New York. It's about a 12-hour flight. So it got taxing for sure. But I would come out here. I would stay at like hotels. He'd often put me up in hotels. Because the thing that he said, another excuse, so this man is full of excuses, if we haven't made that clear yet. All the excuses you could ever imagine that were like just plausible enough. So he would say, well, I'm taking care of my mom, so I'm staying at my parents' house. She's in the hospital, and I'm with my dad. And so I don't really feel comfortable with you coming here right now. And I thought, that's fine. Like, I understand. I don't want to intrude on a time that's really difficult for your family. Like, if your mom's dying, like, that's not, in my eyes, an appropriate time to come and meet your family. So he'd put me up in hotel rooms, and he'd come see me a couple times when I was in town. And it continued like that for a really long time. I first moved to New York in end of 2019. So we'd already been seeing each other for a while now. And what was crazy is that even when I lived here, we still only saw each other like once every few weeks, like once a month. And he always chalked it up to, I'm so busy. I am taking care of my mom in the night, and then I'm working, or vice versa. Like, I'm working night shifts. I'm having to pick up more shifts. Like, my clients in Hawaii are angry with me because I'm not there right now. So they're all dropping me, and I'm having all these. The thing is too, it's so funny. He would always say, like, I've had a client try to sue me. I've had some legal issues because I'm breaking my contracts because I'm out here taking care of my mom, and just always like an excuse that was just plausible enough.
And like being the victim of something so that it's hard for you to push back too much.
Always. And honestly, that's a giant red flag looking back. Even from the beginning, there were so many sympathy seeking stories. There's always the draw to make you, the victim, feel bad for them and say, oh my gosh, that's so sad. Oh wow, I can't believe, oh, you're so selfless. Oh, I can't believe that happened to you. It's constant. It's constant.
Right. It's like if you're with someone that's just the victim of circumstance over and over again, it's hard for you to realize that you could potentially be the victim of anything, I imagine. That's crazy. So, okay. So you're in New York now with essentially the same arrangement as Hawaii. Do things ever progress with like seeing each other more, or, and at this point, is it despite the like meeting up in hotel rooms and seeing each other once a week, are you just falling more in love with this person?
Yeah, because the thing is too, now that I at this point have a place to live, we still do the hotel rooms because it's equidistant between New Jersey and New York, but he does come sometimes to my home. So now
Okay.
he's met the people I live with, who are very, very close to me. He's met some of my friends, but I've never met his friends and I've never met his family because, again, he's just so busy. Um, always busy. So it was similar, in regard to how often we saw each other, definitely very infrequent. Um, but the types of interactions seemed to be getting deeper. So I thought, because he was meeting my family, he was coming over to my home. It felt like something was progressing. And the thing is, too, it's we always talked about the future. It was always discussion of, well, if and when his mom passes, then we're going to go back to Hawaii. Like New York was supposed to be a very temporary pit stop for me. Like I'll just be out here while you're taking care of your family, because I felt like, because he was being so selfless with his family, when the time came for our family, he would also have that same selflessness. So I just felt like I needed to be patient with him and just wait for that to happen.
How long is this, by the way, this time period where, you know, um, you're in New York and you're in hotels and like his mom and everything? How long did that sort of last?
Um, I mean, the bomb dropped about his mom having cancer September of 2018, and then I was back and forth between Hawaii and New York for about a year. Moved out here end of 2019, and then lo and behold, March of 2020 happened.
Yeah.
We all know what happened there.
Talk about a built-in excuse for him also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he used that fully to his advantage, because it was, I mean, we all know, we have this shared experience now, but we all know how crazy that time period was. I think especially being in New York, which was the pinnacle of COVID in America, it was, just speaking from experience, terrifying. Like no one knew what was happening. Everything was shifting so rapidly. We didn't know anything about COVID, how dangerous it was, how contagious it was. So not only, like, my brain at this point is not really thinking about the relationship per se, because there's a gajillion other things going on. I've lost my business in a day. You can't touch people. How am I supposed to cuddle people? It's gone. My business is gone. I'm concerned about my own well-being and safety. I'm realizing like how much the world is changing overnight. And on top of that, I don't remember if it was like a week later, because New York went into a state of emergency like the middle of March, and it was shortly after that that Will texts me, and he's like, "I'm not feeling good," and he says, "I don't want to scare you, but I think I have COVID." So on top of my whole life just being turned upside down, I'm now in such a state of fear that I'm like, my partner is going to die, because we didn't know how,
Yeah.
like,
And
the
how long had it been since you've seen him at this point?
I think I saw him at the beginning of the month.
Okay.
So I think it was like a week after we last saw each other that we went into a state of emergency. And that
It
was
is
going through
true
my head
though.
too.
Yeah, and just like you said, I mean, that early of a stage, it was like what are the long term effects? Or everyone's going on ventilators, and it, now you hear stories of it doesn't matter if you're young or healthy. So yeah, that's very serious fear at that point when someone that essentially you love contracts it.
Yeah, it was terrifying. And it was just so unknown at this point of what was going to happen or if he was going to be okay. When I was going to see him again, even because now I'm thinking, well, I can't see him because if I were to give COVID to him and his mom dies of COVID, like that is not a guilt
Mm-hmm.
that I want to live with. So, yeah, there were just so many emotions going on at this time. And so looking back, like, of course, I can see the timeline more clearly and I can see things more clearly, but in the moment, it was so overwhelming and emotional. And so that went on. Honestly, I think it went on for like a week where he said, "Oh, I have this high fever. I really don't feel good." He kept saying, "I think I'm going to go to the hospital soon." And I was so worried about him. And so the woman I live with is actually a doctor, and she's been a doctor for 30 years. And she kept saying, "Well, you know what? We can bring him stuff, like see if he wants us to bring him this medication and X, Y, and Z." And every time I asked him, like, "Hey, baby, like, can I bring you something? Are you okay?" He would just kind of not text me back. And it drove me crazy because I'm like, I'm trying to help you. Like, why won't you let me help you? Um, Not understanding that, of course, he doesn't live anywhere I think he actually lives. Um, yeah, and
So,
so yeah, go
I
ahead.
mean, yeah, I was just gonna like just move it along like a little bit like so clearly there's these like weird things where you're like, why won't he text me back or whatever, and at what point did you start to actually feel like, wait, am I being tricked here? Like, what is going on? Or did that ever happen?
Oh, for sure. Well, he ended up so it was like a week or so later, and I said, "How are you feeling?" He said, "I'm feeling about 10% better," and I said, "Great." And that was the last time I ever heard from him.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was like a whole week. I would text him every day being like, "How are you doing? Are you okay?" Again, we don't know what COVID is like at this point, so I'm completely freaking out. Um, I have no way of, I don't know where he lives. I've never been to his apartment because, again, he said he lives with his family, and I've never been over there. So I can't do a wellness check on him. I don't know if he's in a coma. I don't know if he's in the hospital. He had said he was going to go to a specific hospital like a few days before, and so it was like a week after he stopped texting me, and I went to call him, and it went straight to voicemail. And I thought, oh crap, is he dead? And for a while, I was honestly checking the obituaries every single day. I was typing in his name in New York and New Jersey, seeing if an obituary would pop up, because I was so terrified that he had just died, and I had no way of knowing. And so I called the hospital he said he was going to be at, and no one was there by that name. And the next day, I called every single hospital I could find in the area, and no one was there by that name. And that's when I was like, all right, something's not adding up. Like, in what world are you alive, but your phone's off? Like, it just didn't make any sense. And you're not where you say you are. So things were already like, well, that's weird. I didn't really know what that meant yet, but I was like, that's just weird. And so over the next few weeks, like kept trying to call him and text him, and this shame started to pop up in my brain of like, you are an idiot. You don't know where he lives. You've never met his friends. You've never met his family. You have no way of contacting him. And like, do you even really know who he was? Because the thing is, too, and people really question me about this a lot, is that I've never seen his ID at this point. I've asked him
Mm.
for it twice, and each time, again, very plausible excuse. And me being a people pleaser at the time was just like, great, I don't want to rock the boat. No big deal. Because in my brain, no one would ever pretend to be someone they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even know if I'd ever think to look at someone's ID, honestly.
Yeah, it was never a thought in my brain until now.
What was
And
his
so
excuse for not showing you the ID?
he's always said, "Oh, I just really don't like my picture," and just. But again, in my brain, I'm like, "Yeah, no big deal. I don't care. Why would I need to care?"
No, yeah, but like separating the two, like now in hindsight and hearing the story, knowing the outcome, it's crazy how you can hear it and kind of plant all the red flags along the way in what seems so obvious now. But yeah, to be in your position, I just think most people, like if not everyone, would have completely gone along up to the point that you did.
I mean, you want to trust the person you think you love. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's and that's how these people do so well at what they do because of that fact. Like, you want to trust the people you love.
Especially during a time where there's a pandemic scaring the shit out of everyone. Like, you're more inclined to just be like, yeah, whatever, fuck your ID. Like, are you okay?
Correct.
And then not getting an answer, that's very scary. So how did you come to realize that this guy wasn't who he said he was?
Well, after having to kind of put my shame aside, it had been about 3 weeks, and I had been putting off calling the police because I was like, they're going to judge me for not knowing where he lives. They're going to think I'm stupid. So I just didn't for a long time. Even though at this point I had been doing a lot of research on this man, I'd been looking up his name, his phone number, his email, and nothing was coming up. And I was like, that's not good. So about 3 weeks later, it's the beginning of May at this point, I called the police and I wanted to file a missing persons report. And so two cops showed up at my door, and it still makes me tear up. They were very sweet. They were very lovely. And they search his name. They search his parents' name because I gave the cops his parents' name, his brother's names, and they couldn't find any record of him in New York or New Jersey. And if he was from New Jersey, he would have had to have had something, a driver's license, anything. And he didn't exist. And I just remember the cops leaving, and I just crumpled on the floor, and I just bawled my eyes out, realizing like how much I'd been taken advantage of in that moment. And even then, even then, my hope of hopes, I kept thinking, well, maybe he's just married and really he loves me. I was so desperate
Right.
to want to believe that what we felt was real, that I wasn't just living in this fantasy world, that the life we had planned, the things we had shared with each other, the feelings he had shared with me, that somehow that was real. But it wasn't.
Wow. I mean, you talk about like getting the rug pulled from under you, and that is just the ultimate. I mean, what do you remember some of the emotions at the time? Like, is there, because I ask that because I imagine it's probably such a combination of like just the vulnerability of knowing that you got taken advantage of, first of all, and probably just feeling almost completely naked in a sense of how could someone do this to me. And then I feel like for me, I would almost get mad at myself. Like, is that something that happens along the way? Not that that's a like justifiable feeling that, you obviously didn't do anything wrong, but I just would imagine that would kind of bubble up as well.
I dealt with shame for like months after that. But the thing was, it got worse the following day because, like I had said, I'd been trying to figure out who he was. And by doing that, I had logged back onto the Sugar Daddy website that I hadn't been on since we were in a relationship because I told him I'm not going to do this anymore. So I was finally able to log back onto that account the very next day. And sure as shit, there he was, had logged on like a few days prior with the same profile, doing all the same things. And in that moment, my heart just like fell out of my body. I was like, not only are you not who you say you are, but you are maliciously and intentionally doing what you do.
Yeah.
And it was disgusting. Like when I first saw that, like I wanted to like scream and throw up and cry like all at the same time, and I was just like shaking and so angry and just so devastated. Like it wasn't even a question of, did he ever love me? Like it was clear he didn't. It was clear this was so far beyond anything I'd ever experienced before. And so for sure, like the more I shared my story and the more I started talking about it, the more the shame went away. But God, for the first couple months, it was just like, I'm an idiot. How could I have been so stupid? How could I have not seen this? I deserve what happened to me. Like, yeah, it was rough.
Wow. Yeah, and I bring that up too because, like I said, that's not necessarily a feeling that could be justified, but I think it's just valid. I think we all feel a sense of shame, in certain instances. You went through something extremely extreme, but for so many people, like that shame hits first, but it's not their fault in most cases.
Yeah.
Did you ever get a chance to speak to him after all this?
Not directly. So I realized that he wasn't who he was, and I sent him a very angry email on the website. Wasn't expecting anything back. I was just so angry in the moment. And it took me months. So that was May that I found that out, and I didn't find out until the end of 2020 who he really was. And for my own privacy and privacy of how this happened, I won't disclose this, but I was able to figure out who he really was. And in that moment, I immediately searched him up online, and I discovered that his real name, and I also discovered that he was married. And in that moment, that was the hardest thing for me to witness, because my own shame is one thing. For me to have gone through this by myself is like, that sucks. That sucks. And I can get through this. However, now there's a whole other person involved. Not to mention however many other women have fallen victim to him, but there's a woman out there who is married to this monster. Like, that was the most heartbreaking thing. And it took a while for me to reach out to her, and it actually wasn't, and I didn't really know what to say, because I don't know what her life is like. I don't know what their life is like together. Like, I have no idea. And it wasn't until my first video on TikTok went viral that things really started to get interesting, I guess. So the video went viral, and a few days later, I get a call from a police department in the county that he lives in. And I didn't answer it, because at this point, I don't trust a single thing related to this man. I don't know who he knows. I don't know. I don't trust it. You could say you're from a specific police department, but like, I don't know you. I don't trust you. I'm okay. And a few days after that, I get an email from a lawyer, and it's a cease and desist letter from his lawyer saying that I need to remove my videos. I need to stop talking about him. I need to remove any comments with his real name. Because I never mentioned his real name, but the sleuths of TikTok really came through, and they were able to figure out who he was.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Oh, it was crazy. I was like, where were you guys like months ago?
That's wild.
It was
Also,
nuts.
just so people listening and watching, so one of the TikTok video we saw, at least, where you initially shared the story, has over 14 million views, which is crazy. And just so people listening can kind of follow along, what is your TikTok handle, and where can they find you?
Yeah, Catherine Verb, VERB.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so people can check that out and find that video. But wow, so people on TikTok, this just essentially went viral, and people just connected the dots and took all the information you put out there.
That's
and
wild.
found this guy.
When it was right after I called the police and I still didn't know who he was, I made an initial TikTok and just saying, like, this is my boyfriend. And it's gone since then. Someone, quote unquote, couldn't tell you who that was, but someone reported it, so it got taken down. But it was, this is my boyfriend, and we were so happy together. And then all of a sudden he got COVID, and now he's gone, and I realized he wasn't who he said he was. So that never got any traction. But it wasn't until that next video went viral that people went back to that original video from like almost a year prior, and were able to like look at his photos. And just from his photos, I never shared his number. I never shared anything, not his email, nothing. Just from his photos, people were able to figure out who he was and started commenting his real name on that.
That's fucking crazy that they were able to do that.
I know, because I was looking for months and couldn't find anything. I was like, how did you do that? So when my video went viral and people started commenting his name, people reached out to him on TikTok. People reached out to his wife on Twitter. People reached out to his wife on Twitter, and I'm guessing, I would assume, people contacted his work, things like that, which I still don't condone. I didn't then, I still don't now. Just want to make that abundantly clear, to not contact him or anyone he knows. At the same time, though, I was served the cease and desist to take down all my videos about him, to delete any comments with his information, and to never talk about it again. And when I tell you anger, when I tell you the amount of anger I felt in that moment, just like the unjust feeling I felt, like the audacity of this man to not only do what he did to me, but then turn around and try to make it my fault and reprimand me for speaking about his lies. It was the craziest feeling. I've never felt anything like that.
Yeah, that's unreal. That's as low as you can get almost. And he's doing that to prevent his name getting out there so he can continue being a scumbag and lying to others. Wow. So did you comply with that, or what action do you take when you receive the legal letters?
So I got some really good legal advice, and it's hard because like just taking down the videos wouldn't guarantee my safety either. The good and bad thing about America is you can sue anyone for anything at any time, whether or not you're right. So it doesn't really matter. Like, had I taken down the videos initially, he still could have been like, "Oh, look, she knew she was wrong, and let me sue
Yeah.
her anyway." So, I mean, I don't know how much I can really speak about this. It's honestly nothing's been resolved. Still, this happened in May of this last year, May of 2021, and I never moved forward with signing that because we never came to an agreement. And I personally don't feel like it's my responsibility, considering I was not like TikTok is a public platform. I don't
Hmm.
control TikTok. Nor was
So
I
you
ever condoning people to go harass him or contact him. Like, that's not my problem. Just
you
because he
did
lied.
message his wife though?
I did. So when that first video went viral and people started commenting, "Oh, she knows because she's deleting the tags on Twitter,"
Hmm.
I said, "Okay, I need to talk to her." Um, and I won't go too much into that. Um, there's some things
Yeah,
I
that's
don't really
fine.
want to talk about in that, but I did reach out to her and we had a couple of conversations about it. And she has since, as far as I know, left him. And she did make a very public backing of myself on her Facebook, which I highly appreciated.
Wow.
Wow.
um, yeah, because that was scary. Because like I don't know, a lot of times there's that fear of like, is the woman going to blame me? Am I going to now be reprimanded on her end too? Like I don't
Right.
know.
Wow. So since then, so you said it's kind of still unresolved, but you've moved on, but you've moved on in a way where you still talk about this story, this experience, and also just sort of the red flags of this situation, just in a more general sense. So I'm just curious, for you, what was that sort of getting over the hump point, or how did how were you able to feel okay again? How were you able to begin to trust people again, form new relationships? Because I just can't imagine how damaging, it would be, and just the trauma from that, and how hard it would be to trust others again. So how did you, start to move forward and get over that?
I honestly feel very grateful for the time that was given to me in COVID and quarantine, because it really forced me that, along with I was in a coaching program at the time and I just live with this beautiful family has this incredible emotional intelligence. So I just had not only an amazing support system of friends and family, but I also had the gift of time to kind of just forced to be with myself, because I recognize that a lot of my old patterns and numbing techniques prior were getting extremely intoxicated, really drunk, and then having sex just to like numb myself from whatever I was feeling. And I couldn't do that. There was no running from that. So I was forced to sit in my emotions. And that's a lot of what I teach now is emotional intelligence, because I recognize within that how much I'd been numbing myself in the relationship, how much I pushed down my own feelings just to justify his excuses, even though I wasn't getting exactly what I wanted out of that relationship. And it wasn't just that relationship either. Like that was a pattern that I had. And so it really forced me to sit down with myself and just, I had no other option but to be with it. And I think that was honestly the best thing that ever could have happened to me.
Wow. I mean, that is, it's good that you took something like that and it kind of sort of turned it into a positive in what you're talking about, and realizing like the growth that you can kind of have from that.
And
But
just
yeah,
like
I
for
mean,
your own, like you use the term emotional intelligence, like I'm sure it's changed the way you connect with people in such a positive way. Or like I could imagine, a first date is probably a lot different for you now in kind of boundaries that are set, or questions that you ask, and that's a positive. And just that type of transparency and open communication will just help so many people, because the scary reality is that that's just one of many monsters, as you called him, and so many people could fall victim to this, and so many women could be experiencing this right now and not even know it. And that's what's crazy.
And that's what's so important, and what I like to teach now. It's like you can't control other people. I think the statistic is 1 in 25 people has antisocial personality disorder, which is what you could call sociopathy, a sociopath. Um, and again, I'm just going to make a disclosure. I'm not a therapist. I cannot diagnose anyone. And just in what I know about sociopaths, as well as the behavior that was shown to me, there's definitely a correlation there. But 1 in 25 people is a sociopath. And you know someone who is like this, whether you're intimate with them or not. And it's not about trying to control other people or change other people. It's just, how do you move through these situations? How do you avoid these situations? How do you heal from these situations? Because they're out there. Like, you really just can't avoid them. So how do you make sure that your boundaries are set, your standards are set, your emotional intelligence is to a place enough where you can recognize, like, this doesn't feel good for me. Forget about what the other person is doing. How does this feel for me? This doesn't satisfy me in the way that I need. So I need to move forward.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's really great advice, because it's so true. Like, complete avoidance, it could be so impossible to achieve with things like this. Like, you are going to find yourself in situations that you're uncomfortable in, or, form relationships or meet people that are not providing anything positive in your life. And it's I guess not necessarily having that shame like we were talking about before of how did I get in this situation. It's more so, how do I navigate through this? How do I get myself out of this and learn from it and take it into my next experience and be able to set my boundaries. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think just learning to trust yourself is the biggest part of that. Because you were saying, like, how do you trust others? And it's like, it's not really about that. It's just knowing that you're safe enough within yourself to trust your own guidance, your own emotions, your own understanding of yourself.
Yeah. Where can people find you? Just kind of, you mentioned before we started recording that you're doing a podcast of your own. Like, your advice is amazing, and I know we could talk about this for so long. Obviously this is a condensed format, but we want to make sure that listeners and viewers can find you, because we know you do such a great job on your TikTok and other platforms of actually giving this advice to people and helping them. So the floor is yours for anything that you're working on, and any place that people can find you and hear more about this.
Yeah, thank you. So Catherine Verb on TikTok and Instagram. Right now we are in the development stage of creating a podcast that does share stories like myself and others. There's unfortunately an infinite number of other women who have been through a similar situation to mine. So we wanted to highlight that and just give a platform for women to speak and not feel so alone in their experiences. So you can follow me, especially on Instagram. I will be keeping you posted on when that comes out, hopefully in a few months. Other than that, yep, Catherine Verb, TikTok.
Well, awesome. We appreciate you coming on and taking the time to talk about your story, and also leaving our viewers with the opportunity to kind of like learn more about this and, kind of digest your content, and especially the podcast when it's ready to come out. But yeah, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for holding space for me. And I know this is a hard topic to talk about, so thank you for giving me that opportunity.
Yeah,
of
course. No, absolutely. And good luck with everything. We'll be keeping an eye on it all. We're excited for that podcast.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
All right.
No
have a good one. Bye. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. BetterHelp is online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. I've been doing therapy for some time now. It's been pretty life-changing for me, something that I recommend to anyone who's interested in it. And with BetterHelp, it's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. So give it a try and see why over 2 million people have used BetterHelp online therapy. That's over 2 million people, and you get to do therapy your way, however you want, connected to a licensed professional, online, on camera, texting, whatever you need. And this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Other People's Lives listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/OPL. That's BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/OPL, and you'll get 10% off your first month. Hola, mis amigos. I was going to do this whole ad in Spanish, but I'm not quite there yet. But I am getting better because I've been using Babbel. And Babbel has 15-minute lessons to learn a language that make it a perfect way to learn a new language on the go. I'm dead serious. I've been doing Spanish lessons through Babbel for about a month or two now. And I've honestly been learning a ton, and it's really sticking with me more than other ways that I've tried in the past to learn a language, like through podcasts or apps. Babbel lessons were created by over 100 language experts. Their teaching method has been scientifically proven to be effective, which seriously I can vouch for. I am retaining so much more than I have in the past. And with Babbel, you can choose from 14 different languages, including Spanish, French, Italian, and German. And they have speech recognition technology to help you improve how you pronounce words, your accent. So they're really helping you with the full package. I personally love it because it's focused on useful things, like as if, for me, if I was going to travel to Spain or Mexico, it's lessons that are really tailored around things that I would have to use to get around or order food and things like that. So really recommend this if you've been thinking about learning a new language. Now's the time, and Babbel is the way to do it. Plus, they have a 20-day money-back guarantee, so it's really worth checking it out and seeing if it's for you. And right now, when you purchase a 3-month Babbel subscription, you'll get an additional 3 months for free. So that's 6 months for the price of 3 months. So definitely jump on that. Just go to Babbel.com and use promo code OPL. That's Babbel, BABBEL.com, and use code OPL.
What a wild story, man. That's a wild one. So manipulative. Like I don't know. That's a tough thing to kind of deal with, especially because I feel like you've heard stories about people having like catfish situations. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where, like this is on steroids. Like it's not just whatever, but like catfish situations where it's like, oh, you talk online for 4 years, you never really meet them. Like it's kind of on you. But to have someone who you could physically see, and they meet your family, and you know what I mean? Like
integrated fully into your life. That's nuts.
Yeah,
Not just forging
I
a
love
digital
you,
identity.
and like, you know what I mean? Like that's a tough one, man, to kind of deal with.
Sex, romance, friends, like just you're giving the most intimate, like vulnerable parts of you to someone. And the feeling, like when she described, and got emotional about the day that the cops came and just said the words, "This person doesn't exist." I mean, I feel like I would pass out. Like
what does that even mean?
Can you even imagine what that feeling is? And then everything else that comes with it. It's crazy. And it's crazy how, like, not easy, I don't want to say easy, but these tactics, these manipulation tactics, and hearing like what this guy did, talking like, so we can all safely assume he didn't have a mother who had cancer,
Yeah,
like,
I think we can.
It's crazy how just saying a lie like that, just saying the words, just saying like my mother has cancer, like what that allows you to then get away with is crazy. Yeah. You just have to be terrible enough of a person to be able to say that lie to someone.
Yeah, it's like, and it's also, what you're doing with that. You're getting the pity, so it puts you in a position where people just have to take your word for it. If you're going through something, people are less inclined to be like, I have a problem with you, but I'm not going to put it on you right now. Like, they know what they're doing. It's
exactly.
Fucking wild, like, manipulation there. But I think it's amazing that she came out of the situation and kind of spun it in a positive way, and now she's doing a podcast and highlighting other people's stories. I always love when we do episodes that end that way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, no, talk about just taking back ownership of such a shitty situation. And that alone it's just, yeah, super inspirational to see, like, no, this isn't going to be your narrative. This is going to be mine.
Right.
And I'm going to get the audience behind this, and I'm going to explain to people how to avoid this. And that's the best way for closure, essentially, in a lot of cases, is taking something terrible that's happened to you and being able to turn it into a positive to then help other people. And there's no doubt, just with her TikTok and everything she's doing alone, that she hasn't given advice that has truly helped a person in a real life situation. And that's awesome, because
Right.
even just helping one person with that advice is just incredible. You could
Yeah.
save someone so much trauma, essentially. Really cool. Awesome guest.
And also just really fucked to be that guy. And like,
It-
there's something wrong with you, bro.
I
Like,
hope
that's-
his wife left him. I hope that she ended up doing
Yeah.
that. And yeah, it's like we always say on this show.
I mean, people aren't dumb too. He was probably manipulating her as well. So she knew something was off. And then this was like, oh yeah, this is,
and then all the
you know?
pieces come together. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, oh, this makes
Yeah.
a ton of sense now.
And that is just, I feel like we may have said this before, but it's just important for everyone to know, like, that type of person exists. Like we always say when we speak to a guest that has like a fetish or something, it's like, you never know that person that walks past you or the person you're on the train with. You never know what they're going through. At the same time, you never know who out there is just capable of being that manipulative and dangerous and willing to take advantage of you. And it sucks, but you have to be on high alert for these things.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Wild episode, but we appreciate her for coming on, and definitely go follow her if you're, interested in that sort of thing. And for anyone out there that wants to be a guest on our show, don't hesitate to reach out. Go to oplshow.com or just send us an email at oplpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram at OPL Podcast. If you want to become a patron, always do that. Go to patreon.com/OPL show. You're going to get bonus episodes. You get to join our Discord. You get to help us pick charities to donate to each month. A lot of good stuff there, and it helps support the show. So thank you.
Yep, that is all. See you guys next time.